Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My drink of choice today is Zevia Kids. This is the flavor fruit punch. Very, very yummy and has like really good ingredients. Like there's nothing bad in here, so highly recommend if you're interested in something fruity and yummy and 0 calories. But that's not what this video is about. This video is a book recommendation tag, and I'm so excited to talk about this because when I saw Steph Bower make this video, I was extremely excited. I love watching these types of videos, and I hope we can do more of them on YouTube. Not just like once in a blue moon, but this is like a common thing. I want to jump on the wagon. I want to talk about books. I want to give recommendations. So let's get into it. If you're new to my channel, I post videos on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And if you like bookish content, please give this video a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And if you like me, if you like books, and if you like book recommendation tag videos, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Question number 1 is a book that I tell everyone is my favorite, and that has to be, for me, Pride and Prejudice. I always talk about this book, and I think there is a lot to be said about having more than one copy of a book. I have 3, and I probably will be getting more in the future. I just love this book so much. I reread it fairly often. I love watching the movies, and it's just the best book. Like, I feel like that's the only correct answer here. It has enemies to lovers, it's Regency romance, it has a grumpy main male character. We have a lot of insight into what's going on in the early 1800s. I think Jane Austen did such a good job of depicting women's struggles in that time frame and what it was like to get married based off of class, based off of rank, and that it wasn't always a fun time. So I loved it. I love the banter back and forth. I love Elizabeth Bennet, and it's just amazing. Like, if you guys have not read this book, please just do me the favor of reading it. You can listen to it on Audible. I'm pretty sure it's free there. But yeah, it's the best. And I'm so happy we're starting the video with a top tier book. All right, number 2 is a book that is my guilty pleasure. So I feel like with guilty pleasure, in my head, it's something that I probably shouldn't like, but I do like. I have not reread this book, but I really enjoyed it, and I think what makes me like it so much is the telling. Like, it's these 2 main characters. Like, whenever there's a book with these 2 main characters, I gravitate toward it. I want to read it. I'm interested. Give it to me. Just give me all of the Hades and Persephone retellings, because my guilty pleasure book is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and it is a trilogy, so this is book 1 in the series. I love it. It's a dark romance. It's messy. It's a great fun story, and it's kind of like urban fantasy as well. I don't really like urban fantasy, but we do have, you know, the Greek gods and stuff living amongst these people in the modern world. So we have everyday elements that we're familiar with, like nightclubs and college and work and coffee shops, but then we also have the gods living amongst them, kind of doing what they want with the people. I think it was really good. I may reread this at some point, but this is just my recommendation. I think if we're gonna get into I'm not really into dark romance books, but if I had to give a guilty pleasure, it's gonna be this one. Next is a book that everyone loves that I didn't, and I actually have 2 recommendations for this. The first one is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. I don't have the book. I just read it on Kindle. And it was, I think, like a 1 star. Thinking back, I think I gave it 2 stars, but it's really a 1 star for me. I did not like that book. And a lot of people like that book. So I really don't understand why people love the book. I think maybe people like workplace romances and a really optimistic, sunny main female character. I typically do like that in a character, but I just felt that she was more immature versus optimistic and happy all the time. Like, I just felt like she was very young and naive and kind of annoying. And then we have like the worst sort of grumpy character, and they're just working together, and I just didn't see how that was a realistic couple. like I just didn't see them working out. And yeah, I don't like it. I really just don't like workplace romances. I think it's just not my favorite. I don't think I've liked any so far that I've read.
But that's all I'm gonna say about that book. If you like it, love that for you. It's just not for me.
The second book is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is definitely a popular book on Book Talk, and I can see why people like it. Barely. Like, I kind of get the hype, but for me, it just was not the type of world I enjoy reading about. The world building and the fantasy world of Elfame, where this book takes place, is just kind of weird for me. There's like large animals that you can ride, but they're not horses, they're like toads. I don't know why that is something I would be interested in reading about, or would make me want to transport to this world. Like, it did the exact opposite for me. Also, bully romances aren't my favorite, and this was they were pretty mean to our main character, Jude. There's just a lot that I did not like. I didn't like Jude's name. I did not like Carden or his friends. Jude's sister, Tara, is the worst human to have ever existed, in my opinion. And yeah, then there's giant toads. So overall, this was just not my favorite. I did read the full series. I gave it a try. It just wasn't for me. A book that I read the fastest, I have also 2 book recs for, and one is a mystery, one is like a dystopian book. The first one is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. This is the first book I've read from her, and I need to get more of her books because when I tell you I read this in like just a couple of hours, I'm not kidding. It was a quick read. So if you are just trying, let's say you're on a bus for a couple hours, you're on a short flight, you just need something to make the time go by, you love mysteries, I think you should check out this book because it was good. It was fast paced. We're just moving along with the plot. And I really love how we go back and forth in time. We learn a lot about our main character. She's kind of unlikable, but we also feel empathy for her because of her treatment by the people that she's working for. And the plot twist at the end was phenomenal, in my opinion. I kind of guessed it, but it didn't make me like it any less. Like, I was hoping that was what was going to happen, and I was right. And it just made me more excited overall about the book. So I do want to read more books from her. If you like mysteries, or if you don't, this would be a great one to start with. And then the next book that I read super quick was the Shatter Me series, like specifically just each book individually. But if you just want to start with this book, like, it is very quick to read. It's because it's YA, it's not very in-depth, it's not very articulate, I guess. Like, the writing isn't very mature, so you're gonna have that really easy to read, speed read type of feel because it's just a teenage girl writing her thoughts, essentially. It's in first person POV, which is my favorite. It's just so much easier to get through. It's basically all plot, in my opinion. Like, there is some character growth, but they don't dive into the characters too much because they're just really short books. There's a lot going on with this world, so there's not really a lot of time to dive into character growth. Even though we do see it, it's just not as deep, in my opinion, versus like a super thick, chunky fantasy book that I've read in the past. Like, it's not like that. So if you like books that are just like plot, really cool dystopian world and YA writing, like if you're okay with young adult books, then definitely pick this up. You'll read it in less than a day. It was very fast for me, and you're gonna fall in love with the series. And it's like got a bunch of books, so it's got novellas, it has like a 6-book series plus novellas, so it'll keep you busy, but it's worth it. The next tag is a book that deserves more hype, and I had a few that I wanted to recommend, but I'm just gonna narrow it down to a couple because I can't keep giving you 2 book recommendations for each of these tags. I feel like that's cheating in a way. So the first one is going to be a historical romance, and that is A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. This is a debut novel by Sophie Irwin, and I made a full-length video review on my channel about this. I will link it up above, and it's annotated because I loved it. This was a 5-star book for me. It was phenomenal. It was funny. Like, I love how funny this book was, and I'm not into rom-coms at all. Like, I don't like the cheesiness, but because I think it was set in London society, like early 1800s, you know, the social season, plus the rom-com banter that you get from movies that you really like. So I don't know how she did it, but she did it phenomenally. It was amazing read. It's quick. It's not very large. And I just think the fact that you can find humor in a book set in this time period is just a testament to Sophie Irwin's writing. I think she just did a great job. And I want more people to read this book and talk about it. Like, let's have a conversation about this book, please. Another book that I think deserves more hype and is talked about kind of on Book Talk, but I just don't see really talked about here on YouTube, and that is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. I specifically want to talk about books 1 and 2. Technically, I think it's a duology, but you could also read the next book in the series. It's just not revolving these two main characters in these books. You can find this on Kindle Unlimited if you have it. It is there, but I got these on I got these on Amazon because I love them so much. I wanted them on my shelves because I do plan on rereading this. It's so good. We have a main character who was bred to kill and survive, essentially, and she is forced into a marriage arrangement in order to kind of protect her kingdom and help her dad. I don't really want to give too much more away other than that because it will give away some things, but it's an amazing book, and it has a really strong female character who is just like thrown for a loop. And book 2 specifically, guys, it's really good. It is a doozy. So, oh man, now I want to reread this book. It's good. Read it. You won't regret it. You're welcome. Let's move on. A book that is becoming a movie or TV show, so I'm going to mention A Court of Thorns and Roses because I'm so excited about that. The fact that it's in the works, that people are talking about it, is just very exciting to me, and I hope they do it justice. I love that book series, specifically book 2, but book 1 and 2 are like my favorites, and I'm really excited to see what they do with the casting. I'm going to keep my options open and not be too harsh and critical when they do decide to cast people, because even though all of us have ideas on our head of who we want for Reese, like, we just have to trust the casting directors. The book that I have reread the most will probably be a tie between the Harry Potter series and Pride and Prejudice. I read Harry Potter growing up like a lot. It was just a fun read for me growing up, and really just like defined my love for reading as a young girl. And you know, and then obviously Pride and Prejudice, I mentioned earlier, is probably one of my favorite books ever. So I just love rereading it. It just makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, and it puts me in the mood to reading classics more too. So if I ever feel like I'm in a reading slump and I'm like, oh, I should read more classics, let's reread Pride and Prejudice. Yeah, it's just, I can't go wrong. You know, a book from a genre I don't typically read. So I don't really read nonfiction or self-help motivational books. My husband and I did read these when we first got married. It's Wife After God and Husband After God. Highly recommend these. They are by Jennifer Smith, Aaron and Jennifer Smith. Not really sure where I even got these, but it's like, has a lot of questions in here that you can write down and then compare with your other person, sit down, talk about them, have really great conversations. And I just think they're great for newlyweds. So if you're interested in anything like that, I think that these were really good. Like I said, I don't really read nonfiction. I probably should more, but if we're going to mention something from a genre I don't really read, I will recommend these because they're amazing. They're short, really short. You can get through them in like a month if you do like a chapter a week with your husband. You can really just read a passage, answer the questions, and start a conversation that I think is really helpful for newlyweds, and just building a strong relationship with yourself, like with each other. So good. A book that deserves all the hype it gets would be The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is book 2 in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I think it's going to be a trilogy because book 3 comes out in September. And from what I heard, that will be the last in the series. But this book wrecked me. This book sent me up above. Like, my spirit just went, it was so good. It was so good. I actually just finished rereading it so I could annotate because I was wanting to really just take notes. I probably will read it again before book 3 releases in September so that I could just refresh myself on where we left off. But this is an amazing fantasy romance. It is YA, so it's clean. Nothing really goes on. But you have a villain that you just fall in love with. That's all I'm going to say about this series. I've talked about this book so much on my channel, and I really need to make a dedicated video to this series. Maybe when book 3 comes out, I'll just do like a full plot summary. But this is a just rich fairy tale story. It's enchanting, it's mesmerizing, it transports you to this world like no other book has done for me. It is just so good. I can talk about it for days. I love Jax and Evangeline's romance and their growth. Evangeline reminds me so much of me, and I just love that I get to see myself in a character in a book and see her grow and become like this strong, powerful woman. And yeah, this book deserves all the hype it gets, if not more so. So if you're not screaming from the rooftops about this book, you should start, and I'll join you. A book I typically recommend when asked to give a recommendation. Oh man, this one was tough for me to decide because I have so many books that I love and have given 5 stars to that I just want people to read, but I tend to always gravitate to this one, and that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. It is a mystery. If you don't know who Agatha Christie is, like, I'm sure you do. She's like the #1 mystery author ever. And this is probably one of my favorite books as well. So we got Pride and Prejudice, Harry Potter, this one, Ballad of Never After. Like, we got like a little group here of just amazing, phenomenal books. But this one specifically, I recommend a lot because it's really easy to read. If you can get through classics, because I would consider this a classic. It was written like a long time ago, 1939 to be exact. So I don't think it's that difficult to read. It has amazing writing, as Agatha Christie always does, and the plot twist, you'll never figure it out. I promise you won't figure it out. You're going to love the ending. It's going to get you into reading not just mystery novels, but classics. And that's something that I just try to recommend people do. And if you are willing to give this book a chance, I will be very happy that you do. The next tag is a book that has my favorite characters in it, and that is going to have to be Once Upon a Broken Heart, Jax and Evangeline. Like, those two are my ride or dies. I would love to meet them in real life. Jax, I have so many questions about the apples, and Evangeline, I want her hair. So they're just my favorite. I love how Stephanie Garber wrote those characters. There's so much to unpack with them. They have amazing banter. They have just great one-liners, and yeah, I love them so much, and I couldn't think of anyone else that just popped right off the page for me like those two. A book I wish I could live in. So there's so many, but I'm gonna give one, and that's gonna be Emma by Jane Austen. Emma has all of the things that a girl in the 1800s would want, right? She's beautiful, she's rich, she lives in this beautiful estate, I think it's called Highbury, with her father, and she's just like running house over there. Like, she's running the ship. Her dad is like old and doesn't really want her to marry because he wants her to stay and take care of him. And she's fully content to do so and just, be a matchmaker to her friends. So she's living the life. She doesn't really have any troubles in her life other than to find the perfect match for the random girl that just showed up in the town. So I love it. It just reminds me of, Pride and Prejudice and all of those pretty dreamy Regency romance books that you love that, isn't really dramatic and nothing bad really happens in the story. But I would love to live in that estate, enjoy my time, having picnics and riding horses and eating scones. Yeah, If I know what they really did back then, but I'm imagining that's what you could do if you had the, you know, the wealth and the esteem and the power to do so. A book I thought I would hate but ended up loving is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. I actually just purchased this book because I plan on rereading it and I just wanted it on my shelf. This is my favorite book from her and it is hefty. Like, it's a pretty chunky book. The reason why I didn't think I would like it is because I am not a big fan of contemporary romances. I find them to be very cheesy and just kind of fun to get through for the story, but nothing really wows me. I don't think I've ever given a contemporary romance a 5-star rating. This one I gave 5 stars. It was so good. I will say, if you're not interested in a slow burn romance, you may not like this because, like, all of this is slow burn and then, like, here's the romance. So just a heads up. But it's really cool, small town, girl meets grumpy guy, and she's trying to find some information, get some answers about what happened to her mom when she was a kid, while also dealing with her grumpy neighbor / landlord. So it's amazing. I love it, and she got me into reading more of her books and more contemporary, like, slow burn romances. So thank you, Mariana. Very, very grateful. A book that made me cry recently, I have only read one, but I have had, like, you know, other books in the past make me cry. But I think a book that's been most recent, that just every chapter was just tears flowing, was The Paris Library. Here we are, and it is by, I'm not going to pronounce this name because I think, get it wrong. But here it is. It's a historical fiction set. We go back and forth in time, so dual timelines. Were in 1943, 1939 Paris, and also 1983 Montana. So 2 different worlds, the same person. However, when we go backwards in time, we're learning about a woman who lived there. She was a librarian for the American Library of Paris. And when we go forward into Montana 1983, we're in the perspective of a young girl whose neighbor was that woman from 1939 in Paris. So they kind of talk about the past and we get flashbacks. It's the dual timeline, but it's just so heartwarming and sad. And if you think you haven't read enough books about World War II, this is a great one to read. It was just powerful, very powerful book. And it makes you love books so much more. It makes you love the library system and the power of books. Oh, just thinking about it, like, I get choked up thinking about it because, you know, this stuff really happened, and this was in a way a true story about what the library system was able to do for soldiers and people living in such a hard time, and with limited access to joy and happiness, they had books. Oh man, it's so good, guys. It's so good. Highly recommend. If you don't really like historical fictions, this is one it's worth the read. It's worth it. The last question is a book that I wish I could reread for the first time. I would say Once Upon a Broken Heart, but I feel like I've talked about it in enough of these tags, so I'm going to mention another book with equal weight, I think. That is the, I guess the series as a whole, that would be the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy. It is a fantasy romance centered around the story of King Midas. It's a very, 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 very loose reimagining of the King Midas story. The series is centered around a girl named Irwin who is this favored person of King Midas. And we basically just get her perspective of living with King Midas and being his favored and what that means for her. And there's a lot of things to unpack with trauma and, you know, being in love with your captor and the growth that comes from this. I loved it. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but when I read it for the first time, I know book 1 was kind of hard to get through, so if you have read the series, you probably know what I'm talking about. But for me, as I continued reading the books, I was just like really, really enjoying the character growth for Oren, or Aaron, however you pronounce her name. I know that the last book will be coming out soon, so I'm really excited about that. But yeah, this was a series that I could definitely reread and enjoy if I could read it again for the first time. I was like hypnotized with Aaron and her, you know, I don't want to give anything away because not much happens in like book 1, so you'd have to go through the rest of the series to really know what happens with her love life. But I will say that, yeah, book 3 was like the best. It was so amazing. And I really like the cliffhanger for book 4. So I'm hoping that the next one, Gold, I think, will be the last book. I think it will be worth all of the wait. Can't wait. That's it, guys. That is all the books for this book recommendation tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have enjoyed the recommendations that I left. Let me know if you've read any of these, what you think, and if you have any other recommendations for any of these tags, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you in my next video.